If you think putting more hair inside a tape sandwich protects the hair from damage, you are actually sabotaging your install. In fact, doing this is the #1 reason tapes slide out, trap moisture, and cause the exact traction alopecia you're trying to avoid. Welcome back to the channel. I've been reading through your feedback, and the main reason I wanted to sit down and make this video today is to directly address my subscribers' comments. You guys have been hitting me with some incredible technical questions lately. So in this video, I'm putting your comments right up on the screen and I'm going to be answering them all. From exactly how long these extensions last, fine hair safety, removal secrets, and everything in between. If you want the exact masterclass layout of these techniques, make sure to hit that join button below to check out our members only section for exclusive in-depth breakdowns. Everything I'm using today, from the professional sectioning clips to my favorite removal solutions, is going to be listed right now down below in my Amazon storefront. And if it's not there, I'm going to share the discount codes to get a discount on whatever else I'm using. Linked in that description box is also going to be the toolkit that I'm using. And yeah, let's just get right into it. So before we get into the technical install, let's talk a little bit about the tapes and the differences, because there are some different tapes that are on the market. The most notable are going to be these, which are your standard tapes, and these, which are your injected tapes or your invisible tapes. So the benefit of these ones is that they look like they're grown from the scalp, because that tape and that hair looks like it's been injected into the tape. This is a little bit more detectable in the hair, but I would say it is the most popular on the market. So a lot of brands, they're going to be carrying this, and this usually is available in every single shade, every single color. However, if you did have the option, my preference would be to go for these injected tapes, because they definitely look a lot more discreet in the hair. One thing that's also important to remember is which one is more durable. I'm going to tell you from my experience. I could be wrong. You might have had a different experience. These are a little bit more robust. So in terms of how many times you can retape these without this spine breaking down, I would say that these have a longer reusability factor than these. And that just comes down to the fact that these are a little bit more delicate. So definitely something to bear in mind. However, it might be that you get maybe like one more extra use out of this, or two more extra use. All right, let's start off with the most asked question. How many grams do I need for a full head install, or how many packs? So usually if I am creating length and volume with tape-ins, I'm going to be using anywhere between 100 to 150 grams, which is usually about 2 to 3 packs. Whenever you're ordering hair, depending on what brand you use, always check the gram weight per pack. That way you know that you're going to have enough hair for the install. So as a rule of thumb, it's usually about 2 to 3 50-gram packs. Of course, there's going to be exceptions to that rule. If someone has really, really thick hair and they want to go really long, then for sure you're going to need more than 150 grams. That's when you're going to be getting more into that 200 grams, maybe even 250 grams in some circumstances. So then you're going to need maybe 4 or 5 packs. So it's all going to come down to that consultation. So make sure at that consultation you are looking through the natural hair, seeing how thick it is, how short it is, how blunt it is, and how long or short that client wants to go, because that is always going to determine how much hair you need. So if someone was doing just a volume install, 1 pack, 50 grams is usually going to be more than enough. Something to bear in mind. So for today, what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be doing a 100-gram install, and I'll be showing you the placement for 100 grams. And usually for 100 grams, sandwich-wise, you're going to have about 20 sandwiches in the hair. Before we get started, one thing that I just wanted to make a disclaimer about is I know that the hair extensions I'm installing don't necessarily match my mannequin head, and that's okay, because this is purely for education purposes. If I was installing it on a real person, of course, I'm going to make sure that the color match is on point. So the first thing that I always do is section off my mannequin head. So any hair that is in the way, I just section out the way. So this is just going to be a really easy way to section it off. So I just section from the top of the head down to the back of the ear, almost like you're doing a haircut. And then that way I'm just keeping this section out the way. And then I'll turn my mannequin around and literally do the same thing on the other side. And then I'll get my clip and just clip that out the way. One thing I get asked about a lot is my clips. They're from Framar and I've got them linked in my Amazon storefront. I like the big bite clips and then the tight tension clips. They're honestly amazing. And I have so many of them on hand all the time. So now that I've sectioned off the sides, what I'll do is I'm going to do my first section at the nape, because this is where I'm going to install my first tape and hair extensions. Of course, everyone's head is different, but usually at the nape, I'm always going to start with 2 tape sandwiches. So at the bottom of the ear, using the ear as a guide, I'm just going to do 1 straight section all the way along. And I'll just clip that up and out the way. And that's going to be that first section. So my mannequin head's hairline is a little bit funky. It definitely goes super far down. However, typically that first section is going to be about an inch above from the nape. Remember, we're doing 100 grams. So this client that's wearing 100 grams is going to have lower density. They're probably going to be medium to fine hair. If that hair is thicker and they have a really blunt cut, you'll definitely have to go further down than that. So instead of leaving an inch above there, you're probably going to do about half an inch and have your first tape start lower down. But for the sake of today, I'm going to be showing you 100 grams, which is 2 packs. And for most people, this is going to be the perfect amount of hair. Someone commented, would I do the same placement on someone with extremely fine hair? Chances are, if they have really, really fine, fragile hair, you're probably going to be working a little bit higher in the hairline, and the same around the sides as well. You're going to be working a little bit further back. You always want to make sure that when you flip that hair up, there's enough hair to cover that extension safely. Something that I would always do as well for someone with finer hair is, instead of doing a tape sandwich where you put a tape on top and a tape under, I would opt to do a single-sided tape. So I would do a tape on top, and then underneath I would do a single-sided tape. That way it's going to have half the weight of a tape sandwich, and I'll show you that in a second. So that also answers another question that I got. Would I ever do a full head of single-sided tapes? Yes, absolutely. If they have finer hair and they can't support the weight of a full sandwich, then for sure I would just do single-sided tapes throughout the head. And I would use this exact same placement and head chart pattern, but instead of doing the sandwiches, I would do the single-sided. And then that way you're using half the hair. So instead of being 100 grams install, it's 50 grams. So let's go in with our first tape. I'm going to peel off the backing of that tape. And usually, to make it quicker, I'll have those all peeled off and ready to go. So I'm not wasting time peeling that tape tab off. These all come pre-tabbed up. You don't have to remove anything and retape anything, which is really nice. They all come ready to go. So for my first tape sandwich, I'm leaving about a finger width away from the hairline, so about an inch, and I'm going to have 1 tape here and 1 tape here. One thing that I always do is I make sure that I'm dropping down enough to allow for full 360-degree movement, so then that client can flip their hair up really comfortable right from the get-go. Then with my 2 thumbs, I'm just going to press that down into place. And then I'll just pinch the end of the extension and then just flip it up. I like to apply my tapes top first. I find that by doing it this way, I always pick up enough hair than I need. As long as I'm dropping down enough for density, I'm always going to have enough hair in that. If you're ever worried about doing it like this, just make sure that you're lowering it down and you're not sticking it exactly on the part line. That's when you're going to have tension. If your tapes are going to sit too high up, then you're going to create a lot of tension in the install. And when that client goes to wear their hair up, it's going to pull and feel really, really tight. Then I'm just going to flip this tape over, and then from underneath, I'm just going to adhere it to that second side, flip it down, and then I'll just press that into place. Whenever I upload a video, I always get asked questions about this, what this tool is. Is it heat? No, it's not heat. They're literally just pliers, and they're designed for tapes. So it's a tape press. So all you're doing with this is just pressing that tape into place to make sure that everything is locked down. So with the tapes I use, you don't need any sort of heat, which is really nice. I know that some brands recommend you using like a flat iron here to lock it into place. However, there's about 3 different brands that I use for tapes, and none of them require heat to activate the adhesive. All you need is this or your hands. But I love this. It's from El Pro, and with them you get 10% off if you use my code SamHines10, and it's just a tape press. So good, so easy. So another question I get asked about is what brand I use for the tapes. Hovey, as you all know, is like my go-to hair extension brand. However, they don't actually make tape in hair extensions, so I can't use Hovey for my tapes, which I'm really sad about, but it's okay. I found like a few different brands that I really like for tapes. My top 2 is going to be I&H Pro. Amazing hair, amazing quality. All the colors are really comparable to the Hovey colors as well, which I love. And then another brand that I've been loving recently as well is For Locally. And For Locally hair, again, really great color range, really good options. And one thing that I really like about For Locally is that they actually have those injected tapes. So those invisible tapes that I was talking about at the start, For Locally sell those. And I'm just going to stick that underneath and flip that down. And then I'll use my little tape plier. Another question you've been asking is about how much hair to put in between each sandwich. One thing that I'm going to note is if they have really fine hair, you're automatically going to need more hair in that tape sandwich. And the reason for that is because you want to make sure that you have enough of that natural hair to support the weight of the extension. So if someone has thicker hair, they're not really going to need as much hair in the sandwich as someone with finer hair. Another thing to denote is if you feel like they have such fine hair that even though you've dropped down that tape enough to make sure you have enough hair in the sandwich and it still feels like there's not a lot there, that's when you would go in, use your judgment and do a single-sided instead of a double. So let me show you what that single-sided tape looks like now, just so that you can see it. So with your single-sided, you do exactly what I've been doing the last 2 tapes. You put your tape on top, and then now when you flip it up, you just make sure you don't have any little crosshairs in there. Let's put that out the way. And now instead of doing another tape underneath, that's where I do my single-sided tape. So let me show you that. So these single-sided tape tabs are amazing. I actually buy mine from a supplier called Max Hair. They're amazing. Hair Made Easy also make really good tapes as well. And they also make the single-sided. So this is the single-sided tape. And all I'm going to do here is just put that underneath like so. And then flip that down. And that is the single-sided tape. Really easy and a great option for people with finer hair. I also keep getting asked a lot of questions about DIY tape and extensions and, you know, if I should do them myself and all of that. With hair extensions in general, I really don't think, especially if you've got fine hair, I really don't think you should be trying to install them yourself. I really urge you to seek out a professional and have a professional install them for you. And the reason why I say that is because I would never want to tell you guys to try and do it yourself and then you get a lot of damage and you blame me because you're like, well, you told me how to do it and I followed your instruction. It's so different. Doing something yourself versus having a professional do it. It's going to feel different. It's going to look different. And also they can see the back of your head, so they can make sure that you've got enough hair within your sandwich. And they can also make sure that there's no crosshairs either, because crosshairs are going to be really uncomfortable. They're going to pull, and then that in turn can also cause breakage, hair loss, traction alopecia, all the things. So I know that hair extensions are an investment, but if you're going to do it right. Go to a professional and have them installed. The nice thing about tapes is they're reusable. It's a bigger investment to start because you're purchasing the hair and obviously the install. But after that, all you're paying for is those maintenance appointments. You guys, this color match is insane. It looks so bad. The root is so dark. I always get called out in my videos like, color match is so bad, blah, blah, blah. And I know that a lot of the time I purposely use a different color hair so that it stands out more and that you can see the install more. Because if I was to use a color match that was perfect, then it would be harder for you guys to see. So I always have to like laugh it off when I get comments like that. Because of course, if it was like a real person, there's no way I'd let them leave the salon like that. I'd always make sure that the color match was on point. I just wanted to point that out though. I'll always get asked questions about like curly hair as well, or wavy hair. And you can find suppliers that will make curly tape-ins. And what I do is I'll order them and I install them on the hair straight. The reason that I like to install it on the hair straight is to eliminate any sort of crosshairs. And then what I'll do is I always make sure that I allow for the fact that that hair is going to curl back up. So I'll just drop it down a little bit lower than I usually would. And then that way I know when that curls back up, when they wash their hair, it's not going to be too tight to the scalp. But curly hair girls can most certainly wear tape and extensions. In fact, I have a client who has really curly, coily hair and she wears tapes and she loves them. Another question that you guys wanted to know is how long do tape and hair extensions last? So usually between your maintenance appointments, you're going to be able to go anywhere from 4 to 8 weeks. If you have really fine hair, chances are you're going to be more at that 4-week mark. Medium hair, you're probably going to be 6 weeks for your maintenance. And thick hair that doesn't shed a lot, you're probably going to be able to go that full 8 weeks. I would say for most of my clients, the sweet spot is going to be 6 to 7 weeks. Whenever I'm using my tapes, I work in a bricklay pattern as well. If you saw my previous tape video, you'll see that. But I always look for the gap here. And then that way for my next tape, I just bricklay that into place. So what you would have noticed is with my tape install, I do 2, then 3, then 4, and then I start to work my way around the sides. Just makes it really, really easy. If you guys wanted any sort of head charts, definitely go and check out my members page because I upload a lot more detailed bits of content on there, and I will start to be uploading head charts on there as well. And then that way you can reference it when you're doing an install. One thing I love about tapes is how quick they are to install. So with your tape install, usually it's going to take 30 minutes to 90 minutes at the most. I would say on average, it's probably going to be like an hour, which is fabulous. So nice and quick compared to your other methods. So who would be your ideal client for tape and hair extensions? I would say anyone that wants a method that they can reuse, tapes is going to be really great for that. And a lot of the time, people like tapes because they're kind of like a hybrid in between a weft hair extension and an individual, because they're not quite an individual. They're like definitely fuller coverage than that. And they're not quite a weft because a weft is going to be that whole piece. So that's why people like them, because you still get really, really good full coverage, but you don't just have this one solid weft. You have lots of little pieces. So especially if you want to do like multiple colors as well, it's great because it's 50-gram packs. So imagine you're doing a full head of 150 grams. That's like 3 different colors that you can choose. So it's nice. So let me show you this little area here and what I would do in this situation on a real person. So I would definitely want to put a tape there. However, I know that if I was to put a tape there, it's going to slightly hang into that hairline. So when she wears her hair up, that tape's going to poke out. So in this situation, I still want to put a tape there. Otherwise, you're going to have all of this hair left free. But what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to fold this tape in half and I'll install it like that as just like a little mini piece. So I'm going to fold that in half and then I'm going to take my little cutters and I'm just going to cut that tape sandwich in half. And then I'll round out the corners. And now I just have a little mini tape there. That is literally something that I do all the time because I want to make sure that I am not eating into that hairline, because that way I just know the minute it starts to grow out, it's going to start to show through and be uncomfortable and annoying for the client. Flip that up. And then I'll put my other little mini tape. Somebody asked me before if I would ever go smaller than that. So if I'd ever cut the tape into like thirds or quarters. And honestly, no. If I needed to do that, for example, maybe like in the hairline, like in this area here, I'd rather just fill it with a K-tip or a nano hair extension. All right, guys, we are 3 rows in. Really quick. That is so quick to install 3 rows versus another method. So now that I've done my 3 rows, what I'm going to do is now I'm at the ears and I'm going to work an inch above the ear, and I'm going to have a section now going all the way around from the back and then feeding its way to the front. So that was another question. How do you do those front tape-ins? So let me show you right now. I wasn't even planning on doing a full head of tapes, but I've just got carried away. So you've got all your frequently asked questions and a full tape install as well. How good am I? Oversharing. But I know you guys wanted to see the placement as well. So it was something that I definitely wanted to do. And it made sense to do it now, seeing as we're answering all your questions, you know? All right. Making sure that's nice and straight. And this is going to be an inch above my section there. Let me just make sure it's nice and clean. I always like to spend time on my sectioning to make sure it's clean, because that's how you're going to get an install that's really comfortable. If you are willy-nilly with your sectioning, chances are your install isn't going to be the best that it could be. Just making sure it's clean. Okay, don't be tempted to use hairspray when it comes to your install either, because hairspray is going to leave residue on the hair. You want to make sure that when you're installing tapes, that hair is squeaky clean. So when your client's coming in for their install, make sure that you're installing it on clean, dry hair. Preferably freshly washed and clarified hair. And if that hair has residue, oily, maybe a bit of product buildup, maybe they haven't washed something out properly, then I would urge you to go in and re-wash the hair, because if it's not perfectly clean, it's going to be so difficult to get a long-lasting install. Chances are those tapes are going to slide out after the first wash. So clean hair for tape and extensions. Any sort of adhesive-based method, actually, it has to be clean. So you could see how quick you can install these, which is why so many people love them. And now on this row, I'm going to have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That kind of leads us really nicely into another question that I had. What could cause these hair extensions to fall out? Firstly, of course, it could be the installation. If that install was done on hair that had grease in it, it had product buildup, it was oily, then for sure that could cause the extensions to slip out because it's got that buildup on. So then the tape isn't able to adhere to the hair correctly. Another thing that could cause these to slide out is if someone is a really, really heavy sweater. Like, let's say, for example, they work out a lot, they're going into like saunas, their hair is sweating, they get really oily, then of course that could also be a factor as to their tape slipping out. I had a client and she would work out a lot, and then to make sure her tapes didn't slide or come out, she'd always make sure that she would dry her roots. That's another thing. Washing the hair, when you wash the hair, make sure you're drying the roots. Any sort of adhesive based method, that is super duper important. If you're not drying the roots and you're letting that moisture sit, again, it could be a reason for that tape sliding out. Another reason could be like oily products as well. And most importantly, alcohol. So if that client is using hairspray on that attachment point, hairspray has alcohol in it, your remover has alcohol in it. Again, another reason why they could be sliding. I always like to troubleshoot. So I'll ask the client at the consultation this. So that way I can determine whether tapes are going to be a good method for them or not. So another question I got, can they be air dried? No, absolutely not. Not the tapes. I wouldn't recommend air drying them purely because of that moisture factor. You don't want that moisture to stay in the hair and cause those tapes to slide out. If you did want to air dry them, what I would recommend is at least dry the roots first. So blast the roots dry, and then as long as the roots are dry, you can let the rest air dry. Just securing that into place. Tape and hair extensions are really good if you're starting out, either installing extensions, or if you're a client that's starting out in the extension world. The reason that a lot of people like tapes is because of how flat they lay to the head. So that is definitely a pro. So if someone is like, oh my God, I don't want to feel them, I don't want them to feel bulky, I don't want to feel that attachment point, then that's why tapes are such a popular method, because of how flat that tape tab is. And honestly, it's a reason why I don't think tapes are going anywhere. I know that some people are like, tapes are awful, I hate the removal, I hate the retaping process. However, they're not going anywhere because of how easy they are to install and maintain for the client. So then what you want to make sure you're doing is working with tape tabs and remover that work with you, not against you. I have used some tape tabs over my years that have been absolutely awful. They're gooey, they're sticky, they leave behind so much residue. And then that's why I've kind of now found tape tabs that are actually really good and that I enjoy using. That is going to be detrimental to your relationship with tapes. If you don't find good tape tabs, you're going to absolutely hate them, which I see so many stylists talk about. They are so reluctant to do tapes because of that removal process. My favorite remover is one that I talk time and time again about, and it's Hair Made Easy. Hair Made Easy remover is fantastic. And then I really like the tape tabs from Max Hair. They're fantastic. I get a lot of comments about damage, hair extensions causing damage, people that have experienced that damage. And I would never disregard that because I myself have seen that. I've had clients come in, they've had their installs done elsewhere. And when I go to remove that install, it is such bad damage. Like maybe they've, got lots of their natural hair that's coming out with it, or maybe it's caused traction alopecia, bald spots in some places. So that absolutely can happen. And a lot of the time that's down to a few different things. One of them being an incorrect install. One of them being maybe the method was too heavy for their natural hair. Maybe when it was installed, it was too tight. maybe not enough hair, natural hair has been put in there. You always want to make sure that the natural hair and the extension ratio is 1-to-1. Otherwise, again, it's going to be too heavy for that natural hair. But hair extensions are amazing. If they're installed correctly and maintained correctly, they are fantastic. And by maintained correctly, I mean that that client is coming in regularly for their maintenance appointments. They're washing them correctly at home. They're following the aftercare rules. They're brushing them correctly. All of that is going to go hand in hand with making sure that extensions have that long lifespan and aren't going to cause damage to the hair. Another thing that people ask is about hair growth. Will your hair grow with hair extensions, in specifically tape-ins? Of course, your hair is going to grow regardless. Your hair is going to grow. What is going to cause damage is all those things that I just spoke about. However, if everything is perfect, your hair's going to grow and thrive with extensions in. Now that I'm at the sides, you can see I had my tape here, which was 1 inch above from the ear. And now I'm just going to section off 1 inch above that. I did want to point out my sectioning. I always work in straight sections when I'm doing a tape-in install. The reason that I do straight is because if you do any sort of exaggerated angle with tape-ins, it can cause a lot of hot spots. So always making sure that I'm working in straight lines. Sometimes I might slightly angle them when I come to this area here, but it's not going to be an exaggerated angle. Usually it's just going to be a very soft angle. A few people have also commented about wanting to see an install on a real client, and then they want to see the install from start to finish, the cut, the blending, the styling, everything. What I am actually going to start doing is having virtual classes, and with my virtual classes, it's all going to be on a real person, on a model or one of my clients, and you're going to be able to see the install all the way from the start to the end and everything that I do within that install. It's not just going to be the install itself. It would be, you know, the color matching process, as well as the cutting, the blending, the styling. So if you really wanted to see that full install, then I highly recommend when I launch them, you sign up for one of my courses. They're going to be online courses that you can buy. And I've also been toying with the idea of doing like a live virtual class that you can watch back later. So let me know if that's something that you'd also be open to too. So now I'm going to do my third sandwich here, and I spoke a little bit about the angle. I like to do just a very, very soft angle here so that I can work into this area here. Making sure it is 1 inch above. And now I'm going to have one more tape here. Let's go ahead and actually use these ones, which are the invisible tapes, the injected tapes. These are really, really great for those areas that you want to be the most discreet. So, you know, high up in the hairline. And then that way it literally just looks like that tape and extension is growing out of the hair. And you install these exactly the same way, making sure I don't have any little crosshairs in there and that I've got enough hair within that section. Love it. Perfect. All right, let's just do 2 more here, and then that's going to be the full head. And I'll count the sandwiches after to see how many I did. I think it was about 20, making sure my sectioning is nice and clean. I've got exactly 2 more tape sandwiches left. Wow. I wasn't sure if I was going to have enough. I am going to show you guys a removal as well. So this is going to be a bit of a long video, but it's okay because we're breaking down everything there is to know about tapes, and removals is such an important part of that process. We've been talking a lot about damage and avoiding damage. And, you know, one of the biggest ways to avoid damage is, of course, by correctly removing those tapes as well. I'll see a lot of comments online underneath my videos or other people's videos, and it's like, oh my God, when I took my tapes in, it ripped out my natural your hair. And I will say this, if you are yanking those tapes out of the hair, you're not saturating the tape enough. You're not going down with your comb and making sure you're gently sliding that tape out, then it will for sure rip out your hair. So that's why when I'm doing any sort of removal on any extensions, I'm always really mindful to be light-handed and careful with how I'm removing them. You don't want to create damage with a bad removal. So now I want to touch on really quickly how high to go. So if someone has really thick, dense hair, you can definitely work really high up on the head and the extensions aren't going to show. However, if someone has really fine hair, you don't want to work too high onto their head. The reason is you always want to make sure that you have enough of that natural hair to cover and hide the extensions. So as I work up, I always go through and check that I have enough hair, and also look for cowlicks, the crown, all of these different things that are going to affect the install. Because again, if they have a really heavy cowlick here, or maybe they have a double crown, then of course if you were to put a tape there, it's going to show. Same with the hairline. You want to make sure that you're not working too high up or too close to the hairline if they have really fine hair, because chances are that hair is going to be more delicate and it's not going to be able to support the weight of that extension. Ask the client where they wear the hair as well. And before you do the install, always check where they part the hair. If they have a really heavy side part, chances are you're going to need more hair on the side that has the heavier part to make sure that it's going to blend really nicely. Split that down. Love it. People always ask about how to brush your hair extensions, and I always tell them this. You want to take your brush, you want to make sure that the bristles are straight. Any sort of wet brush is going to have that ball at the end. You want a brush like this where the bristles are straight. I've got one linked in my Amazon storefront, and I always have them split their hair into two, grab that ponytail, start with the ends, work your way up to the mids, and then you can go from the top. The reason that you want to do it like that is if you start from the top and they've got mats and tangles, it's going to get stuck and then it's going to pull on the extension. So always making sure you're detangling from the ends first, working up to the mids and then through the top. And another thing is you can glide that brush on top of that attachment point. I've got a full head of extensions in, guys. I'm brushing over that attachment point to make sure that nothing mats or tangles. All right, I'm not going to do a full removal, but I will show you a few. And I also want to show you how I use this board to keep everything organized. You can make this yourself. A few of the girls in the salon, they made it themselves. You can buy this perspex and you can put little clips on it to hold down your extensions. You could even just have it on a piece of paper. But I like this because it keeps everything organized. So let me start with the sides. So you can see here, I've got my tape-ins from the left side, tape-ins from the right side. So let me show you how I remove them and use the board to keep it all organized and also retaping. First thing I'm going to do is, so I'm going to just section off here. Usually I will start from the top and work my way down, but I'm just going to show you one. So I've got my remover. This is the one I was talking to you guys about. It's the Hair Made Easy remover. I love it because it's not oily. So it doesn't leave any sort of oil behind. Spray that. I'll flip up the tape, spray under there. And then I'm just going to get the end of my comb and then just go in and gently open up the tape tab and then slide off that top one. I'll put that on my board. And then I can just gently slide off this one. And then obviously after wear, there's going to be a bit of shed, maybe a bit of the adhesive. So all I do is just comb that out. And if there's a lot of adhesive left behind, I just spray it and comb that out. One thing that I like to do that not everybody does is I actually like to wash the hair. So after I do the removal, I like to go in and wash the natural hair, clarify the natural hair, and then blow dry to make sure that I'm installing it again on fresh, clean hair. It also means that I can get any sort of adhesive that might be stuck in there out, but I always have them come with clean hair because I'm not washing the extensions. If they did want me to wash the extensions, I absolutely can. It's just a little bit of an extra charge because it's essentially like I'm doing 2 washes and 2 blow dries. Now that I've done that, let me move my mannequin because I want to show you how to retape that extension. So all I'm going to do is just peel off that tape. You can get pliers for this. I have these little pliers linked to my Amazon storefront. You can even get a paper towel as well. Usually I wear gloves when I'm taking my tapes off because I don't like sticky residue on my hands. And all you do is just peel off that tape tab. That's why I like the I&H tapes and even the Folocally tapes, because that tape tab just comes off like a hole. It's not gooey and comes off all gooey. It comes off like a hole, so easy to remove. Then all I'm going to do is just take my tape tab here. I'll peel it off. And I'm going to just stick that back onto my tape-in hair extension. Here we go. Some people worry when it comes to the remover because it's alcohol based and they're worried that it's going to dry out the scalp or maybe even dry out the natural hair. That's why I like to wash it out of the hair for that reason. I don't want it to just sit on the hair. This one, it has alcohol. It has a fragrance to it as well. It has water, and then it has a few other fragrances. I think that's it. It's literally just alcohol and water. So it's like very, very watered down. It's not a strong rubbing alcohol. This one doesn't even smell like alcohol either. And like I said, I'm washing it out of the hair. So if someone does have a sensitive scalp, that's why I like to wash it so that that alcohol-based remover is not just sat on the hair, but it dries down really quickly. As you can see, when your sections are not paper thin and your removal is chemical, not physical, tape-ins are one of the safest, most seamless methods on the market, even for the finer hair types. You don't need to fear the breakdown process. You just need the right technique. If you found this breakdown helpful, don't forget to give it a thumbs up and subscribe. For those of you looking for truly deep dive content and you can master the business and the technical craft behind extensions, come and join my members only community. All you have to do is click join and you're going to be able to see lots of behind the scenes footage and advanced training. And if you need to restock your salon cart or practice setup, hit the link to my Amazon store in the description and you can grab all the tools that I've used today. You could see I also did my Hair Made Easy remover and the code for that is SamHines10, and the L Pro pliers. For daily tips, transformation reels, and a closer look at the process, please make sure to follow me on Instagram. It's xsamhair, and on TikTok is extensionistla. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you in the next video. Bye guys. Bye everybody. Thank you for watching. That's a wrap. Such a good boy, Mama. You were so good. My baby. Everyone's going to be like, what's she holding? She wasn't holding that from the start. What is that teddy? What is that teddy?